The Giants finally win a series on this road trip. They lost 2 of 3 in Boston. They got swept in a 4-game series in Philadelphia. They go into Denver. They do what they need to do, which is at least win the series, but they were unable to complete the sweep, which ultimately makes it a little bit disappointing. And the road trip overall, very disappointing. So we'll check in with the state of the team next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015. I've been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Game off, we got to talk about Monopoly Go. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. And coming up on today's show, we didn't get a chance to discuss yesterday's win, and unfortunately today's loss kind of, I don't want to say overshadows it, but certainly balances it out. The Giants had a nice win in the middle game, which gave them a chance to sweep today, but they were unable to do so with Keaton Winn and the offense struggling. Keaton Winn gave up a bunch of runs. We'll get into the numbers for Keaton Winn, as that's 2 straight really not good starts for Keaton Winn, and it kind of puts, I don't want to say pressure, but Kyle Harrison as a young guy pitching great, and a lot of the rest of the rotation. Jordan Hicks, he, in the middle game of this series went 5 innings, gave up only 3 runs, raised his ERA to 2.30, 5 strikeouts, no homers in Coors, 2 walks, 7 hits. But Keaton Winn, on the other hand, today goes out there and gives up 7 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings. I get it. It's Denver. It's a tough place to pitch. But nonetheless, that's just not getting the job done. So overall, just kind of big picture takeaway as we stand here at this point in the season, this was a bad road trip for the Giants. They end up going 3-7, whereas with a win, they could have salvaged it a little bit and gone 4-6, which would have been a nice comeback considering they were 1-6 to start. And so, look, 3-7, yeah, it's just not good enough. Their overall road record right now is 8-15, so they just have to play a lot better on the road. And most recently, you won a series. And yes, you won a series against one of the worst teams in baseball, the Colorado Rockies. But we all know that Denver is not an easy place to play, and it's always tough to sweep a team. And so coming up, Giants still no days off. When is the last time this team had a day off? They were in Boston. Yeah, so before going to Boston, they did have a day off. So 10-game road trip followed by a game tomorrow, Friday night, against the Cincinnati Reds for 3, and then the Dodgers come into town for 3, and then they do get a day off, and it's a home day off, and then the Rockies come into town. So the Reds and the Rockies are 2 teams you really just need to take advantage of there, and the Dodgers are going to be tough, as the Dodgers are. And record-wise, the Cincinnati Reds have lost 8 straight games. They have lost 8 straight games, so they come into town reeling. But nonetheless, their record is not much worse than the Giants. Their record is just barely worse than the Giants. But 8 straight losses for the Cincinnati Reds, and that's who the Giants are taking on tomorrow. So hopefully you can kick them while they're down. I do sometimes worry about a team that's in the midst of that kind of a losing streak because, at a certain point, they get I just think mentally you just get like this angry attitude and you just kind of take it out on another team and you just kind of break out like and the ball starts bouncing your way. This is maybe just like me irrationally thinking. That's not necessarily a real thing. For all we know, they could lose 11 straight by getting swept by the Giants. But what's interesting in a bad way is that the Reds, their run differential is -2. So that comes with an expected record of 18 and 19. So they're, I guess, only underperforming that by 2 wins. But for the Giants, their run differential is an unsightly -42, which is only the Marlins and Rockies have a worse run differential in the National League than the Giants. And for the Giants, that run differential has an expected record of 15 and 24. So imagine if the Giants were 15 and 24. As bad as 17 and 22 is, 5 games under 500, 15 and 24 is 2 games worse. So the Reds are underperforming. So that scares me a bit too. But when it's all said and done, the game is played on the field, and you're just going to go out there and compete against them tomorrow and have a chance to win a game. It's going to be Logan Webb on the mound, Andrew Abbott on the mound for the Reds, coming in with a 3.22 ERA, and this guy 3.32, excuse me. He dominated the Giants last year in Cincinnati. I think that was the only time they saw him, but he was extremely tough and. But you've got Logan Webb, and Webb has had a couple consecutive not great starts, and so I'd imagine he's kind of chomping at the bit to get back out there. Probably flew home early from Denver. It's not a long flight, so maybe not. But Andrew Abbott, yeah, I mean he's been good and tough to hit. The peripheral numbers not quite as good as the actual ERA, so maybe due for a little bit of regression, but nonetheless, he's been good, and he's a left-handed thrower, so this is going to be more opportunities for some of the guys we saw today. Austin Slater, like you're going to need to get him going. Wilmer Flores, you're going to need to get him going. Matt Chapman got it going a bit. He did not play on Thursday in the finale, but he was in there on Wednesday in the win, the 8-6 win, and collected 2 hits, and they were big hits too. And Michael Conforto's been on a tear, so I would imagine he's in there no matter what, no matter who's on the mound, lefty or not. He went three for 4 with a walk in the win, and then even in the loss today, he goes 2 for 3 with a walk and a homer, and he had a homer the other day too. So Michael Conforto has been red hot, and that's something you really like to see. But overall, like in the short term, a series win is a good thing and should make us happy. But at the same time, in the context of getting swept in a 4-game series in Philly and losing 2 out of 3 in Boston, it's just overall no sugarcoating it. A bad road trip for the Giants, who are now, like I said, 5 games under 500, and the thing is though they're only 2.5 games out of a wild card spot, and so like, yeah, if you're having hopes of the division, then you're going to be disappointed. But 2.5 games out of a wild card spot, like you could literally possibly make that up in one series and be in a wild card spot. And so, like the teams that are in wild card positions right now are right at 500. That's the thing, though. You're 5 games under, so they would have to lose. You would have to win, and there's a bunch of teams. There's 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, there's a multiple way tie for that third wild card spot. And so you have to pass a lot of teams. It's super early in the season, so it's very possible, but they're just going to have to play better. So coming up in just a minute, I want to look at the numbers, like checking in on the offense that had a better series in Denver prior to today, but also the pitching. Keaton Winn, what's going on there? And Jordan Hicks continuing to have a really good season for the Giants overall in this experiment that has so far gone very well. So I want to dive into that momentarily and do medical updates as well. Those are really important, and we'll get into it in just a second. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by DoorDash. It's never too late to show mom your love this Mother's Day with DoorDash. Surprise mom with flowers, gadgets, and self-care essentials all in one place, delivered right to her door. Pair flowers with a gift card so she can celebrate any way she wants. Is she a bookworm like my mom who listens to the show every day? So don't tell her that I'm thinking about this, but try a bookstore gift card. Does she love a good latte? Get a gift card to her favorite coffee shop. You really can't go wrong. And if you shop with DoorDash, you can shop with savings that would make her proud. With a Dash Pass membership like I have had for years, you'll save with a $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders from DoorDash merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees, including service fee, apply. Terms apply. Order now and get everything you need for Mother's Day on DoorDash. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. That's code LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms do apply. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go, this great game that I cannot put down. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends or play against them for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. That's more my style. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, as promised, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the numbers with the Giants. They did hit better in the first two games of this series. First game, they won 5-0. Great pitching. 5 runs at Coors, though, is nothing to do cartwheels about. But then in the second game, they had a huge inning and won 8-6, a little bit closer than the game felt, as it was 8-4 going into the ninth. But the offense, coming into today was like middle of the pack, right in the middle of the pack, both with the bats and with, counting base running and defense. Middle of the pack, like literally 15th out of 30 teams. And so, that it's not been great. It's not been terrible. The weird thing, we've discussed this, is that they've not scored runs when they've given up runs. And they have scored runs when they've not given up runs. So you'd kind of wish it was the opposite, but that's just how it's gone. Except the trend was bucked. They were 1-20 in games in which they had allowed 4 runs or more until the middle game when they allowed 6 and they won the game. So now they're 2-21 because they allowed 4 runs or more again today. So 2-21. That's still just abysmal and crazy. It's a very not alarming stat, but like shockingly bad, and to me, like unsustainable. Thanks again, by the way, for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow I hope to be talking to Francis Sullivan from Locked On MLB, doing a little crossover, talking about the Giants season so far, and whatever Sully wants to talk about. Sully's the boss, Locked On MLB. So I hope to be talking to him. We're still trying to figure out the logistics. By the way, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV Channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with Sirius XM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. And also a reminder about Postcast with Eric Engel on the Locked on Sports Bay Area YouTube channel. And so this will include its Giants, like immediate after the game reaction to pretty much every game. Sometimes Eric is going to need a break like every game. It's kind of a crazy schedule in baseball. But also when the Warriors are playing, when the 49ers are playing, same deal. Instant reaction, Locked on Sports Bay Area with Eric Engel postcast, and then that feed shows up on the non-YouTube feed of this podcast, Locked on Giants. So just FYI. So getting into like the numbers and stuff, Keaton Winn, Jordan Hicks, I do want to get into those guys. So after today's outing, we'll talk about the numbers for Keaton Winn after today's outing. But first, I want to talk about the positive, which was Jordan Hicks, who just continues to be one of the better stories in baseball, kind of, I think, given that not a lot of people, even Giants fans, were too hopeful that this transition would work from a reliever to a starter. And he's just been nothing short of very good and very consistent for the Giants. Like, he's just been rock solid. His ERA ballooned to 2.30 after this outing, and we're talking about a Coors Field outing. And the expected ERA is more than a run higher at 3.49. Fielding independent pitching is at 3.16. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he's done very well at limiting home runs. He's allowed one home run in 43 innings, which is obviously great. And I mean, just nonetheless, like you're getting a 2.30 ERA from this guy in 43 innings, which, let's see, like Logan Webb has thrown 46 in a third inning. So Hicks has been an innings eater and has been excellent. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. And he, the strikeout rate is definitely down a little bit from when he was a reliever, but the walk rate is currently a career best 9.1%. His career walk rate is 12.3%. He's getting a lot of balls on the ground, 56% ground ball rate. That's going to be one of the highest in the sport. And he's just been tough. He's just been extremely tough with the 3-pitch arsenal. The fastball down from an average of 100.2 miles an hour last year to 95.6 miles an hour this year, but that's kind of to be expected when you're taking on a starter's workload. The sweeper, he's throwing, slower as well, at 81.9 miles an hour. And then the splitter, he's throwing so much more. He kind of mixed in a splitter like 5 or less percent of the time previously, but now he's throwing his splitter 23.3% of the time. And I do believe the numbers on that. I don't have it pulled up, so I won't quote myself on that, but I do believe that he's getting really good results on his splitter. Actually, I'm going to kind of try to pull that up. That thing I just tried didn't work as I had hoped, but yeah, I mean, he's just what can you say? Like, Jordan Hicks has been very good. Yeah, the split finger fastball, it drops 4.4 more inches than average. And yeah, so that, and the results on that pitch are that hitters are hitting 083 with a 111 slugging. So it's been a phenomenal pitch for him. The sweeper, they're hitting 111 with a 185 slugging. The fastball has been by far his worst pitch. But, with hitters hitting 279 with a 349 slugging. So that's not a lot of power, but there is some batting average there. Nonetheless, I mean, just what can you say? 2.30 ERA, it couldn't have gone better in 8 starts so far for Jordan Hicks. Now, for Keaton Winn, on the other hand, this was a guy who had really good numbers 2 starts ago, and now all of a sudden we're looking at a 5.63 ERA. Came into the game with a 4.41. And before the previous game, if we just take out his last game was in Philadelphia, it was bad conditions. He had a sinus headache. He came into that Philadelphia start with a 3.18 ERA, 3.72 fielding independent pitching, was just looking really solid. And then basically, uh, in his next, so he pitched 2/3 of an inning in Philly and gave up 5 earned runs. And today he pitches 3 2/3 and gives up 7 earned runs. So that's 12 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings. 12 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings. So it's been a really rough last two starts for Keaton Winn. Peripherals, though, remain much better. Ground ball rate is really high. Fielding independent pitching is solid. He hasn't allowed a lot of home runs. It kind of seems like a little bit of bad luck. His left on base percentage is really low at only 58.6%. That's abnormally low and kind of a luck indicator. That number should be closer to 70%, and it's only at like 57%. So he's just like when he allows base runners, they're scoring more often than we should expect moving forward. So I'm not like giving up on Keaton Winn, but at the same time, it kind of places a little bit of a sense of urgency on certain guys to get back and healthy, especially because you've also got, I mean, right now, the rotation is Logan Webb, Mason Black, Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks, and Keaton Winn. And so, as good as Hicks has been, he's still, you know, unproven in terms of how deep how many innings can this guy throw. He's never in his major league career thrown more than, like 60 or 70 or so innings. And all of a sudden, he's almost there already. He's at 43. Most he's ever thrown is 77 2/3. That was his rookie season. Last year, he threw 65 2/3. That was the second most. And he's at 43 now. So we're talking like 2-3 more starts, and he's going to be at a career high in innings. So there's that. And then there's Kyle Harrison is a 22-year-old, yet he's been really good. Mason Black has made one career start, and Keaton Winn is struggling. And so you talk about the guys on the IL in who are the guys on the IL? Blake Snell, most significantly, I think, because he's the closest to returning, but also Robbie Ray and Alex Cobb and Tristan Beck. And so we're going to give medical updates, discuss Blake Snell's status, and also how about Jorge Soler? He goes on the IL. And there's a little bit of an update on Jung-Hoo Lee physically, who was out of the lineup in this game today due to a little bit of an injury. So we'll get into all of these medical updates in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode is brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and the most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Spring training is long over. Baseball season is in full swing, so don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. I like to pick Giants players myself, whether it's strikeouts, runs batted in, first innings runs. You just take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including, drumroll please, the great golden state of California. So I love this game. I love playing Prize Picks, and you will too. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB. I believe that's all lowercase, LOCKEDONMLB, for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, as promised, we're going to give you some updates, medical updates on some key players for the Giants, including Blake Snell. What is his status, considering things have gotten a bit rocky here with certain guys in the rotation? Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow, like I said, I hope to be talking to Sully from Locked On MLB. If not, I will put out a prompt for mailbag questions, as we haven't done one in a little while, and since the Giants went on this rough road trip, and so I'm sure there's some kind of negative comments that will be coming in that I will get to. Giants have some positives. I mean, I want to check on Michael Conforto before wrapping up today's episode as well, because he's been on a tear, and Lamont Wade Jr. has been great, and so it's not like they've got no positives. And then Jordan Hicks has been great. Kyle Harrison has been great. It's just they've got it's been a weird season so far. Weird for sure. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. I already said this. Never mind. Uh, Reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. By the way, Michael Conforto hitting 275, 329 on base, 493 slugging. That's the Michael Conforto we know and love, and we're kind of hoping for last year. And if he can do anything like that, then that's just a huge step forward for him from what we saw last year overall. He did really well in this series. Yes, it's in Denver, so we got to wait and see if he can continue. He started out really hot, then he went cold, and now he's hot again. So hopefully he can keep that up. But the medical updates. So first of all, I want to get into Blake Snell and the latest there. So Snell is dealing with a left groin strain. And the word from Shayna Rubin of the San Francisco Chronicle is that Snell will throw a bullpen session Thursday, which is today. So he probably already threw it. And he will begin a rehab assignment at Single A San Jose on Sunday. And so that is good to hear. And maybe he only requires one rehab start. Maybe it's two, maybe it's three at the worst. But obviously you hope for no setbacks, and those are always possible. But beginning a rehab assignment is a definitely positive step in the right direction. Hopefully he comes out of this bullpen session fine, and that the plan is a go, and that he's able to make that rehab start in San Jose. So that's very good. And so then there's this, I pulled this off of like my fantasy baseball website, and the analysis is that Snell began facing hitters Tuesday, and now he's been given the green light to test his injured thigh. It's not his thigh. It's an adductor. I don't really know exactly where that is. In a competitive setting, the left-hander may have his assignment moved to a higher level affiliate after his outing on Sunday, though it's possible the Giants opt to return him to the rotation after just one start. Yeah, so I would agree there 100%. And just like I said, with all the inexperience in the rotation right now, and with Keaton Winn struggling, it seems like there's a you've also got Mason Black, like, who's made one start, and he's gonna get probably at least one more coming up in the second game of the series against the Phillies or Reds, I think. But and I'm high on Mason Black. Like, I'm excited to see what he can do. But Blake Snell is the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner, and I'm even more excited to see what he can do. I know it wasn't a good beginning of the season for him, but it was a few outings, and he can make 20 something more and do a lot better than that. So the next update is on Jung-Hoo Lee, simply because he has been a steady presence, and he's hit the ball hard all season, hit into some bad luck all season, but has played well defensively, has been durable. But he was not in the lineup on Thursday. He fouled a ball off his foot during a plate appearance in Wednesday night's win over the Rockies. And it was sore Thursday morning, and he wasn't in the lineup. As I said. So Bob Melvin said that Lee was receiving treatment and would be reevaluated on Friday before the Giants open their series against the Reds. So that's the latest. Hopefully, I'm thinking worst case scenario, you fear like a fracture in the toe or something. Left foot, it's not saying toe. You fear a fracture. Suddenly you're like, oh, it's still hurting really bad. And then they do an x-ray, and then you're like, oh, there's a little fracture. Look, I'm talking worst case scenario here. So hopefully it's just sore and he needs one day and then he's back in the lineup. I've been impressed with him all season, and I think the numbers will ultimately show. He hit some balls really hard in Denver too, and they did fall. So I'm just excited about what he can do, and he's an important part of this lineup, and they need him healthy. So another guy who's important but hasn't done well is Jorge Soler. And so Jorge Soler hurt his shoulder, a right shoulder strain that he hurt on his last swing in the Philadelphia series, his final swing. And he thought he dislocated his shoulder at the time, which is terrifying. What if he actually had? That could be a really long-term injury. So they called up Elliot Ramos in his place. Ramos started in the middle game and had a hit, but not the best plate appearances. And then he wasn't in the lineup in the finale, which I thought was interesting. And the Giants got smoked. What was it, 9-1? So Soler tweaked his shoulder in the final at bat of Saturday's loss to the Phillies, missed 3 games before being placed on the 10-day injured list retroactive to May 5th. Soler said that he was feeling, quote, extremely well and had no pain in his shoulder on Wednesday, though he had not yet hit in the cage. He also said that when he first hurt his shoulder, he felt as though he had dislocated it. So he did hit in the cage, and it was still painful and sore or whatever. And so they decided at that point to put him on the injured list. Soler said, I imagine through an interpreter. Yes, through an interpreter. It had been like 3 days since I had played, so the manager and I spoke, and the manager felt that it wasn't right to keep asking me how I felt every day. So I guess the best course of action was for me to go on the IL and bring somebody else up. That sounds like he didn't want to go on the IL, which is interesting. But from a tweet by, again, Shayna Rubin of the Chronicle, she said that he took swings in the batting cage but felt pain in his shoulder still. He and Melvin decided it would be best for him to move to the IL retroactive to May 5th. So there you have it. It's like he wasn't performing anyway, and you do have Wilmer Flores. It's kind of a luxury to just fill in for Soler. So this isn't the hugest of deals, but ultimately, if the Giants want to get where they want to go, they're going to need Soler to turn it around and have a better season than the one he's started out the year having. So anyway, that is all the updates on the medical side, and that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, either Paul Francis Sullivan crossover or a mailbag as soon as I find out if he can do it or not. If he can't do it, I'll put out a prompt on Twitter, so look out for that. Locked On, by the way, has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.